welcome back to my show. In today's episode, we have a really special guest with us today. Her name is Tracy Badua. Hi Tracy, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm so happy to have you on my show today.
I am very happy to be here.
Okay, so let's get into it. So my first question for you is that, actually this is more of a question, this is more of a request. Could you please introduce yourself and your newest book, which is going to be coming on May 3rd?
Yeah, sure. So hi everybody, I'm Tracy Badua. I'm a writer of middle grade and young adult work, and my rapidly approaching debut novel, Freddie versus the Family Curse, comes out on May 3rd, 2022. And that is about a 12-year-old Filipino-American boy who finds an amulet and thinks that it's going to turn his life around. He's going to not have bad luck anymore, but turns out it actually makes everything worse. It holds the ghost of his great-granduncle, and they have to team up to break a family curse or be trapped in the amulet forever together. So that is my middle grade contemporary fantasy that comes out in May. And then I've also got a couple other works. I've got a young adult work coming out in January 2023. So got a couple of things coming down the pipeline.
That's really nice. So now into our main question for you, which is that how do you craft settings? Like, since you write fantasy, I'm sure settings is a big part of what you're writing, world building and all of those good stuff. So how do you go about that?
Yeah, so let me, for Freddie versus the Family Curse, it's a contemporary fantasy, so it is grounded in our real life, and I use San Diego, California, where I live now. I use that as kind of the background setting because it's something that I could easily describe. I could just look out the window and be like, okay, there's palm trees and there's sunshine and sometimes it rains. So I kind of used that when I was trying to figure out the setting. But some of the very specific settings in the book itself, like for example, Freddie's room, his bedroom is, really messy. He's got a bookcase. I was like, oh, it's kind of like my room. Or at one point I talk about how he is sitting on the bleachers of his school gym, and they're having like a big assembly, so that was inspired by the gym of the school that I went to growing up. And when I was writing it, I had to sit there and kind of close my eyes and imagine, like, okay, what did it sound like being in the gym? What did it smell like? You have to really think of these little things. Or like, remember how the lights are kind of not like classroom lights, they're kind of brighter and kind of greenish, and everyone looks kind of weird under it. So it's really trying to get into the details of, like, even if you're gonna do a real life setting, you can add those kind of fun elements by really thinking about little things that your character might notice. So I know it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to also just write, straight up fantasy. I've got a lot of friends who write, whole second worlds with, dragons or witches or magic. It's like, that is way too hard. I have a hard enough time describing a gym. So I will stick to contemporary fantasy for right now until I can reach that skill level where I am able to come up with dragons and describe what it's like to ride one or something like that.
That's really nice. I think that settings are not just, of course, since it's like a contemporary fantasy, I presume that it's going to be in a real life setting, as you just said. Mm-hmm. But again, as we said before, settings can be used in every scene. So like, even if it's not dragons and witches and magic, you can still have a lot of setting which could really make your readers be transformed into a new world, even if it's not actually a new world as in like a new land, but it may be the same. It may be San Diego or whichever place you're using, but still, like, kind of like can imagine that they are actually in that place. Which is actually the goal of the author in a way.
Yeah, and of course, I think that's one of the things that people kind of forget about. Of just because you're writing contemporary doesn't mean you don't have to really get into the details of the world that your character lives in. So for example, with Freddie, he is 12 years old, so he obviously lives at home with his parents, and then also his great grandmother. So what would a house like that look like? You know, for me, I have an idea of what that looks like in my head. I can picture like that kind of chair would be over here, and they have this kind of art. But you go to a whole different reader, and of course they would have a completely different idea of what his house would look like. So the times that you want to specify and add those details, you kind of have to do it. You kind of have to help fill in those gaps for people. So again, somebody could read it and be like, oh, he's growing up in a 10-bedroom mansion. I'm like, no, he's in a 3-bedroom house with like 1 bathroom or something. And they're all like hanging out with his great grandmother on the couch watching soap operas. Like, you have to get into the details to kind of build that world for them.
Yeah. Another question I have on these lines are that at what point would you like let's say you do not describe the house, but would you do that? Would it be recommended so like maybe the reader can imagine on their own on like what the house could look like and go wild with it? Maybe they could come up with like peacocks everywhere in the living room eating popcorn, or like do all of that crazy stuff.
Yeah, of course. I mean, one thing you do want to balance is like, even though you want to be descriptive and you want to kind of paint a picture in the reader's mind, you can't control everything that they are imagining of your characters. Like, think of every time you've watched a movie that's based on a book and people are like, oh, they cast this person, I had no idea, like that's not who I pictured in my head, that kind of thing. And it's fine, because sometimes it's good to let the reader's imagination kind of fill in those little gaps. Because I think what would be worse is, you're sitting there trying to describe, for example, a living room, and it's like half the chapter, and the reader is looking at it. They're like, I don't care what color the couch is. Just tell me what the characters are doing. What does this have to do with the plot? How is he trying to break the curse? And then meanwhile, I'm sitting there describing like, he's eating fried chicken. Fried chicken is this, and it's this color, and it's this temperature. Like, you kind of have to just keep things moving along, and it's fine to let readers fill in the details, because that's kind of the fun of it. Like, when you get really involved in a story and you're quickly turning the pages because you're so wrapped up into it and it's so vivid in your head. Like, I don't need to know what color the couch is. I don't need to know the temperature of the chicken.
Yeah, I feel like what you're saying is completely true, because you do not want the reader to get bored and then leave your book, right?
Yeah.
You want them to continue reading, because the more longer the description is, the more it like discontinue their connection with the plots. Like, for example, if you're in the interesting part and you're just about to like tell them how the curse is broken, and you're just talking about the door or the setting where your curse is broken, they would be like, I'm actually curious in knowing what this is, but I might as well just get a spoil from someone else and like do it the easy way without reading. I will try not to do any spoilers. So everything that I described, don't worry, like the key to breaking the curse is not the chicken. we're good. But yeah, like I think it's a good balance, and it's something that you'll kind of learn as you write and you have people reading your work. They'll tell you if you have some good critique partners or writing partners, or someone who's just used to reading, like I write middle grade examples, so I would have somebody who's used to reading middle grade read the work and tell me what they think. They'll let you know if they're like, I found this kind of boring. You spend 3 chapters describing something that doesn't end up mattering. Or, oh my gosh, this goes too fast. He's here, and then all of a sudden he breaks the curse, and you're already in chapter this. Like, what else are you going to do? So I really want to emphasize how good it is to have good friends or good readers who are going to be honest with you and tell you when something's boring or when something needs a little bit more oomph to it. I feel like you're really right. Mainly since like writing middle grade or writing a children's book is like a good idea, mainly because like if you're a teacher or someone who's a teacher, or you're around kids a lot, or someone who, in that way you will meet many kids who read middle grade or children's books, and I feel like if you make the targeted audience give it a try first, then you will get more accurate results. Because if you give an adult book, and even if they're a middle grade author, it won't really be coming out like the feedback they're giving won't be as a reader, it'll be more of as a writer. So instead of giving you like feedback as like, they'll give you more of line edits instead of like telling you the plot problem, whether this is working or not working.
No, that's completely right, and that's so important that whoever's reading it is kind of knows what you're trying to get at, what kind of story you're trying to write. Like, for example, I let my husband read it, and he does not normally read middle grade books, and he's like, it's great. I was like, do you have any feedback, anything? He's like, no, it looks good. I was like, okay, for sure, 100%, it is not a perfect book. But it shows you how important it is to have somebody who, like, you know, he is not a big reader of middle grade, so he doesn't know what to look for. He doesn't know that, you know, the word count should be between this and this and this, and that every chapter should really move the plot forward. Like, if you read some, you know, there's some adult books where you will read it and it's like 150,000 words, and they do spend a lot of time going into detail and describing all sorts of things, and the characters go through a lot of, like, so many chapters of big emotional change. It's like, well, but that's 3 times the size of a middle grade, so that wouldn't fly in our for like a middle grade audience. So you really have to get someone who kind of knows what you're trying to write, so they can help you shape it that way. Like, if they don't know what shape you're looking for, if you're looking for a triangle and they don't know that, they'll just be like, that's a wonderful circle. You're like, no, I was not looking for a circle. I was looking for a triangle.
Yeah, I feel like finding the right reading partner, finding the right person to read a book really matters. Like, for example, as I said before, or you said before, the target audience matters, who you're giving it to. They should know what you're looking for, and also be really honest with you.
Yeah,
and I feel like in that sense, maybe kids might be the perfect option, since they're really honest on, like, especially when it comes to reading. If they do not like a book, they do not like the book, and they say it straight. And like, and if they do like a book, well, then they do read the book then.
Yeah, no, that is exactly right. I feel like if a kid is reading a book, or if they don't like something, they will let you know. So, like, and that's great. They're not going to sit there and, like, maybe they'll be nice about it, and, you know, obviously try to maybe spare your feelings. But if they think, like, it's, you know, looking back it's been a long time since I was in middle grade, but I remember reading books and I was like, this is kind of boring. And then you know, you have to talk about it in class, and you don't have a lot to say because it didn't really, you know, it wasn't really fun, and you weren't really that interested in it. Like, and I'm sure at that point, like, the teacher can tell. The teacher can tell if it's not a book that really held your interest, and, like, that's fine, because, you know, books reach out to different kinds of readers. But yeah, you can. I feel like you can kind of just tell just by looking at someone if they don't like your book. So it's good. It's that kind of honesty that we need, because we all know, like, what we write is not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be every single person's favorite book, and that's fine.
Yeah. My next question is actually again on these lines, so which is that, have you ever seen a reader, or you yourself as a reader, ever read a book, instead of reading it front to back, you read it back to front? Like, you know what the ending is gonna be, and then you go to the front. That's what I do sometimes.
I feel like I probably have friends that do that, but they don't, you know, especially with, like, if they're reading my book, they probably won't tell me if they will just, you know, went all the way to the back to see what happens with the curse. I haven't done that in a while, and that's actually a really fun thing to do. I think I might pick up a book I haven't read in a while and do it that way. So one of the cool things about one of the ways that I've tried to nail down, like, structure and, like, surprise and plot and twist is, like, I'll take a book that I really like, and I'll actually kind of go through chapter by chapter and be like, oh, well, what happens in this chapter? What does the character learn, or what obstacle does he run into? And I kind of do that from just, like, start to finish. It would be so interesting to see that backwards, to be like, okay, in this one, he, you know, whatever, defeats the dragon and saves the kingdom, but working backwards, like, how does he do that? That would be a really interesting thing to do.
Yeah, because, like, sometimes what happens is, if, like, the book is getting really interesting, but then I have to go somewhere, and I do not have the patience to read the rest of it because I do not think I'll be able to do it because like I tend to finish most books in a day, right? So like let's say I have to go for lunch or do something else and I do not want to wait, I just go all the way till the back, read what's gonna happen, and then come back and read it till there.
There you go. So you're at least not sitting there at lunch like wondering, like I wonder what happens, or like get in trouble because you're like trying to stall and like, oh, we're eating right now. We've been eating for 10 minutes. Where are you?
My next question, this is really fun. Do you Google yourself often? And what do you Google? And what do you find?
I do recently. I used to not because, it didn't really worry me. But now that at the time that you and I are talking, my book is coming out soon. So one of the things I'm trying to do is at least make sure that if folks are reviewing the book or saying like, oh, I really like this cover, or, this looks really fun, I kind of check every now and then to see if it's something that I can boost. So like if I find it on, a book blog and someone says, I really like this color, I'll repost it on, social media somewhere just so folks remember that, oh, that's my book. And then also to, promote the other person. And so like maybe they'll get some traffic from whatever the 10 followers that I have that are probably all my family.
I feel like Goodreads could also be a place where most authors are on, and yeah, that's actually how I find most new books. That's actually how I found your book and found you, because basically what I do is to find new authors and new people, because most of the books I have on my shelves are already done. So that's why I start looking for new books from 2022 or future years or something, so that I can find new authors who are debuting new or are, because I want new people in here. So debut authors are the best people to be on the show, mainly because since they're new, with the audience who watches the show, or your own your own people who you have, your own followers or your own audience who have followed you for a long time, or even new people, right? They all will be seeing you, so then that way then they'll be looking forward to your future books as well, and not just your current new book.
Yeah, no, great. I'm so excited that you reached out and invited me. This is actually my first kind of live podcast interview, so I'm going to send it to all my aunties and uncles and have everybody listen to it. So thank you for digging around on Goodreads and pulling out a couple of us who are debuting this year. I know it's a lot of, it's been hard because, I knock on wood, I've been lucky enough that I may have an in-person launch, but I know a lot of folks who are debuting this year or debuted last year, we all had virtual events because we want to be safe. We want to keep ourselves and our readers safe. And so we'll do it virtually. So any little bit of extra chats that we're able to have with readers, especially through, fantastic podcasts like yours, like that, we welcome these kinds of opportunities.
Yeah. So a little bit more on we didn't touch fully on the Google question since I kind of digressed from the actual topic. So you said yes, right, to the question?
I do. I do Google my name also because my name is pretty unique. There's not that many Tracy Baduas out there. I think there's maybe a one or two that I've seen out in the world, and sometimes I'll kind of Google and see oh wow, this person got their nursing degree, or this person won a race or something cool. But it's just to make sure I'm not missing anything cool in terms of promotions for myself or my book.
That's really good. I agree with that what you just said, because actually when I was searching it up, because sometimes what happens is that sometimes people with the same name turn out to be have the same profession as you. So then you want to make sure that the one you're contacting is the one you're actually researching.
Yeah, that's important. I'm lucky and unlucky because my name is pretty uncommon. So there's only so many chances you could get to reach a Tracy Badua. But I do have friends whose names are you can switch a letter around or two, and it's like 5 different authors who write in vastly different genres. So you have to be careful. You have to know who you're reaching out to.
Like for example, there's this author which I was recently looking for, who's debuting this year, and the same name was of someone else who is also an author, middle grade author. So they both were middle grade authors with the same first and last name. So I had to really make sure I looked at the website carefully and looked at the books to make sure I was choosing the right one.
Oh, that's smart. That's good that you kind of did some of the extra work on that to make sure you have the right person.
Yeah, I feel like, and that's the reason why in the podcast episode titles, you may have noticed that I write author off and then I write the book's name and not just write the author's name, mainly because you never really know, like if both of the people with the same name are ending up watching the show, they're like, wait, that doesn't sound like me. Who is that?
I don't remember doing that interview. No, that's really smart. That's good. So they're able to easily find it, and you know, if you're a reader and you're trying to find a specific author or specific book, like you know exactly what to look for.
Yeah. My next question for you, this is kind of deep. What does success mean to you? And yeah, what does success mean to you?
What does what mean to me? Sorry, cut out a little bit.
What does success mean to you?
Wow, success. That is a really deep question. I am lucky enough to feel, gosh, knock on wood, I feel successful right now because I do have, the biggest hurdle for me was writing a book that I wanted to, get traditionally published and put out in the world. And I reached that goal, and it's going to be coming out in a few weeks, and I'll be able to go into a bookstore and pick it up and that kind of thing. And for me, the reason that was kind of so important is I've wanted to be a writer ever since I was a little girl. I was one of those kids, like, way back in, like, kindergarten, first grade, who got all of the paper and stapled it together and tried to write their own stories. Like, I was that kid. So, like, it means a lot to me, like, years and years later that, like, I get to do this for real, and then people who are not related to me, who are not my grandma, are going to be able to read this stuff. So I'm really excited that I'm reaching this point where, like, I can say, like, wow, I did this thing that I've been dreaming about for so long. I consider that success. And another layer to that will hopefully be, if I'm going to be able to continue doing this, if I continue to get to write books that will get published. So that's the unfinished part of success that I need to keep reaching for.
I love your answer, mainly because I feel like success, there's no one way or one path to success. There can be many ways. Sometimes people, like, the most rare way of getting success probably through lotteries. That's really rare, right? But I guess the main thing would be, for all the listeners and everyone else listening out there, would probably be to work hard for what you want and not just think that it would happen without working hard. Because I'm sure that you would not have come to the stage without actually writing, right? So I feel like everyone should be writing in order to be an author, or because technically everyone is born a writer, just that they need to write in order to be called a writer. So my next question for you is actually on this line. So before, I used to ask this question as, what advice would you give to aspiring young writers? But now that I think about it, you're already a writer when you write. So my question would be molded into, what advice would you give to aspiring young authors?
Yeah, we kind of talked about this earlier, about how important it is to kind of know the kind of story you want to tell. Like when we were talking about, I'm trying to create a triangle, and then other people are like, no, that's a circle. So part of that, though, is reading widely in the genre and age range that you want to write. So, like, I was saying that my husband, who doesn't really read middle grade, wouldn't really know what to look for when he's trying to read a middle grade. So, like, if I didn't read any middle grade, I wouldn't know how to write it. I would probably insert all of this extra stuff that, like, would slow down the book. Like, there's just 3 chapters of describing the living room. Like, I wouldn't know how to do these things. So reading widely is one of those things that shows you how the book it's sneaky. It shows you how the book is structured, and all the while you're having a good time reading the story. So you'll be turning the pages, and you'll reach the end, and you'll sit there and be like, wow, that was really good. You have to take it one more step and just be like, well, why was it good? Was it fast paced? Did I really like how they approach the characters? Do I really like how, the settings? Was that something that I thought was really cool? They really developed, the castle and the dragon and that kind of thing. So reading widely and then really thinking about what you just read, like what did you like about it? What maybe you didn't like? I think that's a really good way to start honing your skills as a writer. It's one of those things that, like, even though it's you might read for fun, the learning will sneak up on you. You will start to notice, like, as you're writing, like later on your own stuff, you'll think of little things. You're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't spend 3 chapters describing a living room. Maybe let me just go ahead and fast forward this and describe where everybody's sitting and then move on. The lessons will just kind of work their way into your brain.
Yeah, I really like that advice. I feel like every author who has come on the show so far, they've all given great advice. They've given different advice. Everyone has suggested reading. I feel like reading is like the number one thing which every author and every person out there would say for anyone who wants to be an author to do. It's like, as you said already, you learn from that, either knowingly or sometimes indirectly. Maybe someone's talking about it and you're learning about it through that. So I feel like you can really learn from pretty much any book. And like, it doesn't have to be a non-fiction, as a matter of fact. You can learn from a fiction. For example, If you're writing a dragon book or a contemporary fiction or anything you're writing, you can really find the same kind of book. But then again, instead of like taking information from that, you can learn as in like maybe maybe you can see how they described each character without making it too long, and then also moving forward, so you could see how they develop the setting or how they develop the characters, and that way you can use that knowledge from that into your own without copying it and causing issues in the publishing.
Exactly. And yeah, when I say like learning the lesson, it's learning the technique or how they approach something. You obviously don't want to sit there and just copy things word for word.
Because then in a way you're just copying the book.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, I didn't write. I just literally, wrote one paragraph from this book and put into mine. That's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
Anyways, that's the end of the episode. I really loved talking to you today. I had a great time.
Thank you for interviewing me. I had a great time too. It was fun to kind of relive my writing journey with Freddie versus the Family Curse.
I'm so happy that you had a great time, and I cannot wait to read your newest book. And all of you out there listening to this episode right now, I would really recommend pre-ordering Tracy's book. And if you are not going to be pre-ordering it, but I would definitely recommend buying it or reading it from your local library whenever it's out. But the official release date for her book is May 3rd. So remember, don't forget to buy her book and enjoy your reading life. Keep writing, keep reading, and have a nice day. Bye, guys.